International Women's Day is a day where women are celebrated and uplifted for their achievements and empowered to reach their goals. We wanted to talk about women in sport and the journey of how they got to where they are in their respective careers. As well as this, we want to look back at the past at how female sport representation has evolved over time. Women's stories in sports are one that is long with a complicated history, but it's also one that is not talked about enough. From women being banned to play football after the war to the Lionesses bringing it home in the 2022 Euros. The achievements made in this stretch of time is one to not only be explored but to be praised. To find out more about women's futures in sports, we also must explore their past and how women in sport to have gotten where they are today.
So let's now take a look back at achievements, challenges and key icons in the history of women's sport. Despite the pushbacks women have faced, even dating back to 2000 BCE, women have been visible in sport. Egyptian temple walls show illustrations of women partaking in sport, from exercising to playing ball games. After years of exclusion from the Olympic Games, in 776 BCE, the Games of Hera were introduced, an athletic competition for women in honour of the Greek goddess Hera. Fast forward to the 16th century, let's take a look at another female sporting moment. Leading the charge for golf in 1567 was Mary Queen of Scots, who became the first woman in Scotland to play golf and is said to have originated the term caddie. Another woman taking a leading approach to fighting for women's sport was boxer Elizabeth Wilkinson. In 1722, at Figg's Training Academy, Elizabeth was recognised for her ability to fight both genders and after winning many fights was named the European Championess. Later on in the 18th century, the first recorded women's cricket match took place in Surrey and quickly after started to become common in the southeast of England. Taking a look at women's history in rugby, in 1884, Portora Royal School in Enniskillen, Ireland, formed the first school's rugby team for girls. Eventually, it would be women's football that took off during World War I, with lots of women's games attracting even bigger crowds than the men's games. And on Boxing Day in 1920, the biggest women's football crowd saw Dick Kerr's Ladies beat St Helens Ladies 4-0. But only a year later, in 1921, the FA banned women from playing on Football League grounds, a huge setback for women and the sport. One important female tennis icon is Althea Gibson, who was the first black woman to win a Grand Slam tournament in tennis, and later went on to become the first black woman to play at Wimbledon. It was then in 1957, after also winning the 56 French Championships, that she was considered the best female tennis player in the world. In the last 2 decades, we have started to see many improvements in women's sport. For example, in 2007, the Wimbledon tennis tournament announced that it would pay women and men equal prize money for the first time. In 2021, the 100, a professional cricket tournament, begun, with tickets giving access to both the men and women's games, and the prize money also being equal. And after bringing it home for England in 2022 at the Euros, the Lionesses have inspired young girls and boys alike across the nation to get involved in sport, including Lottie Wubbenmoy urging the government to grant equal access to football for girls and boys in school. And despite all these iconic female figures and their achievements, we are still a long way off receiving equality in sport. Still, only 63% of schoolgirls have access to football in PE in the UK. Girls are significantly less active than boys, and girls' participation in team sports is only 41% compared to 63% in boys' participation. Now we have focused on the past, it's time to take a look at the perspectives of some female athletes.
What sport do you play?
I play rugby.
And how long have you played that sport for?
I played contact for less than a year now, but I played tag for about 4 or 5 years.
So how did you get into tag and then eventually rugby?
Tag was through a friend. She was doing it for years anyway, and I decided to do it. And then contact, I always wanted to do it during tag, but we weren't given the chance to. And then I saw that we were doing it here, and I was like, oh, go for it.
And who's your female inspiration for sports?
I don't think there's many that I know of. I don't know any female rugby players. Mainly it's because I don't watch it, but also it's not been shown to me in the media as much. So I'd say I don't have one, which is quite upsetting. But
And in regards to that, would you say that you've had negative experiences in the sport relating to your gender specifically?
I'd say as a team, yes, not personally, because I don't think anyone would want to do that to me. But as a team, yeah, they definitely put us down more than the boys. But I feel like we're just as strong, if not we're better than them.
What would you tell any younger girls trying to get into sport in general or rugby?
I'd say go for it. It's fun, it keeps you healthy, and it's a good socialising skill. I feel like it makes you have good teamwork too, and it's good for your CV.
Did you have any female visibility in the sport, or did you feel put to the side, like growing up, trying to?
Very put aside. It was always very focused on the boys' matches, and then the girls would just be like, oh, no, we'll throw that together, And especially in the club as well, it was all focused around the boys this, the boys that. The girls wouldn't get any days or anything like that. But here, I feel like it's a bit different because we're all women now, so it's like, oh, they actually treat us as our own team, and they're much nicer now. But I'd say overall, it's still, we're less than men in the sport.
After speaking to Libby Lawler, we talked to Jess Evans, a professional footballer in the FA Women's National League. She is currently a midfielder for Peterborough United and has been playing for around 20 years. She spoke to us about how in her childhood she was told that she couldn't play football and how there was little visibility within the community. This meant that going to watch a women's football game was hard, even with higher level players. Inspired by her dad watching football when she was young, Jess and her dad searched for a female team for her to join at aged 11. However, she was bullied in school for it, whether that be in PE or just being made to feel the odd one out in a male-dominated sport. She believes that the culture has definitely improved, especially due to the Lionesses' win. But now that she performs at a higher level, she explains there is a constant pressure to do the best you can, reflecting and reassessing the game to avoid heavy criticism. However, despite all this, she would encourage girls to be brave and join a sport. It allows you to build new vital qualities for life and the opportunity to grow, plus achieve goals.
With women's role in sport securely placed down for the future due to activism and equal rights, there are still more changes that need to be implemented before it can become anywhere near close to being fair to how men are treated in the industry. With things like fairer pay and more female accessibility to things like protective clothing being a huge problem for women in sport, it puts a barrier between them and men. The pedestal placed on men's sport is nowhere near the same of women's in terms of things like television coverage and advertising revenue, because as we all know, men's sports take the forefront, showing that there is still a clear gap between them. This documentary is a way to show young girls that anything is possible, though it may not be easy to begin with. It also shows them that even some of their favourite female athletes struggle to get to where they are in their sports today. The history of women's participation in sport was long yet well earned, and though their representation is still lacking, this International Women's Day we wanted to put women on the pedestal. We hope that by showing you some of the faces of tomorrow, it will inspire young girls to take part and be proactive in inspiring others to also take part.